Welcome to the Accomplished Brain podcast, where we share our passion, knowledge, and experience about the brain and health.
Welcome everyone back to the Accomplished Brain podcast, where we talk about brain health, chronic neurological disorders, and current health topics. In our last episode, we talked about sleep. We talked about the different stages of sleep, the chemicals or the hormones that help us get to sleep, wake us up, so on and so forth. Andrew and I both felt like it was a really great session, and there's some things that we want to dive a little deeper into. So we're actually going to do a part 2 of sleep, dive into some things a little bit deeper and kind of hone in on some other areas that sleep or lack of sleep can affect. And one thing I feel like that we kind of didn't talk about enough is how sleep can regulate our hormones and what that can do to affect our lifestyle or affect our overall health. So I think one thing I mentioned in the last episode was how sleep kind of regulates our hunger hormone, ghrelin. And what actually happens is ghrelin will actually go up, essentially making us hungrier, and leptin, which is a hormone which makes us feel full, will actually go down. So your cravings are going to go up, and your hypothetic could end up eating more. The other thing it does is it creates a metabolic inefficiency. So with 6 hours or less of sleep, if you're actually losing weight, you're not actually going to be losing fat. You're actually going to be losing muscle mass. And so what happens is your body kind of goes into that survival mode. And when you're not getting enough sleep, it says, well, we've got to find energy from somewhere, and we don't want to take away our fat resources. So actually you'll eat away at your own muscle in order to get energy. Now you will also eat away at glycogen, but when we talk about what we want to burn and what we want to lose, if we want to lose weight, we want to lose fat more than anything else. Cortisol goes up, stress hormone, and testosterone will go down as well. So when you talk about whether it's losing weight, changing body composition, so on and so forth, not getting sufficient sleep is going to put you in the opposite direction. And especially when you talk about hormones like ghrelin, obesity is arguably the biggest issue we have in this country when it comes to health. And we all know that obesity has an effect on things like our heart health. Obesity has an effect on depression, on things like ADHD. And so if we can kind of start to tailor those things alone just from sleeping, that alone can kind of help us with our lifestyles and how we eat. The other thing I think that's important is from a fertility standpoint. If we're not getting enough sufficient sleep, men actually will have fewer sperm and less quality of sperm. For women, you get a reduction in FSH, which is follicular stimulating hormone, which is a part of the reproduction pathway. So same thing if you're young in your 20s and 30s and you're trying to have kids, sleep's going to be very important to make sure that you and your partner are both fertile. And I think when it comes to health, we also have to realize some of our greatest fears, which is cancer and Alzheimer's. And I think that's kind of different for everybody in the room of kind of what you fear most. But I think it's important to understand that when we go through those sleep cycles that we spoke of, it helps regulate interstitial fluid, which lies deep in the brain, and cerebrospinal fluid. Now, both of those things act to help cleanse the brain and especially cleanse us of beta amyloid. So there's actually been tons of studies that find that the less sleep that you're getting, if you're getting 5 hours or less, you have a higher number of beta amyloid. And that was found specifically at the Department of Neurology at the University of Washington. For me personally, Alzheimer's is one of my greatest fears, and I think doing something as simple as sleeping to avoid getting those beta amyloid plaques is a really easy thing to do. And also, we talk about things like cancer. So we all know that sleeping helps us helps our immune system get stronger. It helps us develop more T cells, so on and so forth. But I think one really interesting thing is that an interesting fact I found is that after one bad night of sleep, our natural killer cells go down by 70%. So natural killer cells are kind of like the Navy SEALs of our immune system. They're very precise, they're very targeted, they're very strong. And basically what they do is if they find whether it's a toxin or a bad molecule, they'll inject it, they'll attack it to try to kill it. So if we think of something like a cancer or some sort of a disease coming into our system, um, if you're 70% down in those natural killer cells after one bad night of sleep, you can let a lot of things pass through our system, go unnoticed. And just as a side note, I do think it's important to know we all have cancer living inside of us, but if you have a healthy immune system, it'll never metastasize and become anything. But if you continue to do something like get bad night of sleep, environmental toxins, so on and so forth, that cancer will build up more and more, and your immune system will get to a point where it can't fight it anymore. But lastly, in a time of COVID, and we're all talking about the vaccine, I also think it's important to know that when you're lacking sleep, you also produce less antibodies. There's actually a study done where they took a large group of people and gave them 5 nights of sleep with 5 hours or less of sleep, and they found that they were producing 50% less of the antibodies that they normally would produce. So when you think of, hey, I'm going to go get my flu shot this year, or I'm going to go get the COVID vaccine, you're actually going to make that vaccine way less effective than it's designed to be, because your body doesn't have the antibodies to really fight it and manipulate it and get used to it. So I think that those are all things that are important when it comes to understanding the overall health of why sleep is so important. It's not just because of our energy levels. It actually has a huge effect on how our immune system functions, how our hormones replenish themselves, and it can prevent long-term issues such as Alzheimer's. So um, I think at the end of the day, it's a really simple thing to fix, and Andrew is going to go into now of talking at a molecular level of things that we can do to enhance our quality of sleep and to help us get to sleep.
Jeff, well, that was very well said. Excellent, very well done. Really good with putting it all together and relating the sleep to hormones, to fertility, to the immune system. You know, and then overall, like with some of the chronic neurological diseases like Alzheimer's. So I thought that was extremely well said and just really well put together.